The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink TV, its sponsors, or partners.
I'm Jerry Walsh. I'm an executive recruiter, career coach, speaker, and writer. I work with employers who want to hire great people, and I work with individuals who want to find great careers. If you are looking for helpful insights and practical ideas to help you find a job you love, stay right here for another episode of Take This Job and Love It. Hi everyone, I'm Jerry Walsh and welcome to Take This Job and Love It. My guest today is Peter Conlon, the CEO of LED Roadway Lighting, a world leader in the design and manufacture of energy-efficient LED street lighting systems. Peter's career has been quite a journey. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He spent his early days in product management and international sales at Mitel and Newbridge Networks, two companies you may not remember, but at that time, two darlings of the Canadian tech scene. He has worked internationally, including spending 2 years in Mexico as the GM of a multinational joint venture. As a consultant, he has assisted startups with leadership, strategic planning, business growth, and financing. More recently, he has served as president and CEO of Nautel, one of the world's largest manufacturers of radio broadcast transmitters, and frankly, one of Nova Scotia's great success stories. So much so that during Peter's tenure, Nautel was recognized by both Canadian Business and Profit magazines as one of Canada's fastest growing companies. He's been recognized as Business Person of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce and as one of top 50 CEOs in Atlantic Canada by Atlantic Business Magazine, get this, 5 times. He also serves as a member of the Board of Governors of Nova Scotia Community College. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jerry.
So Peter, take us back to your earlier years, your younger years. I mean, what were you thinking at that time about how your career might evolve?
It's interesting because before I got into a career, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was floating, as a matter of fact, and had a very good friend who we were sitting in my mother's place, and he said, "You really need to do something with your life." And so he went and got the calendar for the community college in Ottawa and said, "Here, take this, look through this and find yourself a life." And I went through it and I happened on electronics and said to myself, that looks like an interesting and clean type of a career. And so I got into electronics for that absolutely off-the-wall reason and have been in the technology space now for 35 years.
Interesting. And so your first two major careers, I guess, were with Mitel and Newbridge Networks. How did they come about?
Mitel was very small when I joined, and they were hiring left, right, and center. They were starting to grow, so a fellow that I knew at the college said, there's this company out in Canada and they're hiring. You should go and talk to them. And so I went out and spoke with the fellow and got hired and started actually in the production as a tester. I was right on the floor learning about the products and then had an opportunity to work my way through the entire organization to ending up running one of their subsidiaries.
Interesting. Now I want to fast forward you to your job at Nautel here in Nova Scotia. You landed here. How did that career transition happen?
Well, I married a woman from Prince Edward Island, and when you marry an islander, you're supposed to build a cottage there. So we had built a cottage and we were living in the cottage at the time, and I had connected with some of the people in the recruitment world here. And you know how they send you these things and they say, if you know of anybody who might be interested in the following, just pass it on. And it was the Nautel opportunity. So I reached back out to them and I said, this is me. When I read it, it was clear to me that I was there and Nautel was there.
Interesting. So your whole career's had a technology slant to it. Now, why is technology important?
Well, I think that we are living in the middle of another industrial revolution. You know, I think the people who grew up in the days of the cotton gin probably didn't recognize it, just like we're maybe not recognizing it. But people will look back on the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s as a change point in the history of the world. We're part of it, and it's about technology. It's about computing, it's about networking, and to be part of that and to actually participate in changing the world is pretty exciting.
Fascinating, yeah. So when you think back over your career, are there any lessons that you learned that had a really profound effect on the way your career has evolved?
Oh, absolutely. For me, I could list 20,000 of them, but maybe one of the most fundamental ones is you have to be a good listener to be a good leader. I remember a fellow telling me, I was a young technical guy and ready to argue about everything, and Mitel and Newbridge were great places to argue. And my manager said to me one day, Peter, you need to learn how to engage brain before operating mouth. And that was a profound lesson for me that I've carried through to today.
Certainly a good lesson. I want to talk a bit about culture in organizations. I mean, a lot of people talk about that and write about that. So what does that mean to you? And if you think about your current role with LED Roadway Lighting, I mean, how might, in a few words, you describe the culture within that organization?
Well, I'm in LED now for 4 months, so I'm in many ways just learning about the culture. I can tell you that it's a culture of confidence, and you need to have a culture of confidence to be able to participate in the world scene. If you're going to be successful in the international space, you need courage and you need the ability to stick with the game plan. And that means that you have to have confidence in yourself, confidence in the person down the hall, and I see a lot of that at LED.
Interesting. So most successful people at one time, I guess in their careers, have had some mentors or role models that who really had a big impact. For you, Peter, who were those people that had an impact on your life?
Well, clearly, I would say the number one is a fellow by the name of Terry Matthews. And Terry Matthews is a serial entrepreneur and really a hero in the Canadian technology space. He started Mitel, he started Newbridge. But I think more than just starting companies, it's the way that Terry interacted with his people that I have found to be very powerful. He's an inspirational leader. I'll tell you a little story. The first time I ever really had an interaction with him, he was walking down the stairs of a little building that we were in, and he had a plunger on his shoulder. And it was because he, who was the founder of the company, the co-owner, had just been up plunging one of the toilets because it needed doing. He did it. It wasn't something that was beneath him. Fabulous lesson for me. There is no job beneath you.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point and a great story. Thanks for sharing that. So in our last minute or so, the theme of your career, as you look at it, has been largely international sales, export marketing. Talk a little bit about sort of Atlantic Canadian businesses and some of the lessons that companies here could learn to be more successful in that sphere.
Well, as I was saying earlier, you need to have courage. To go into the international marketplace, you need courage because things are going to be different. You're going to have different people, different cultures, different documentation, et cetera. But maybe more important is you've got to stay the path. Doing business in the international sphere doesn't happen overnight. And I think what happens with a lot of organizations is they go out, they try it, they go on a trade mission, they make connections, they come back and nothing happens and they give up. So you have to have persistence. You have to know it's going to take a long time. You have to be willing to put the effort into it. And if you do, and if you're good at what you do, you should be able to transact business.
Yeah, sort of good advice for Nova Scotia companies for sure. Earlier I asked Peter to tell us about the most defining moment of his career. As we go to commercial break, listen to what he had to say. And when we come back from break, I'll give you some career advice that will get you to the top.
The most defining moment in my career can still make my face go red even today. It happened when I was living in Mexico and I was running a company down there and we were doing quite well. In fact, I was feeling my oats and decided that what I would do is I would invite my boss's boss's boss, the CEO of the company, to come down and see how we were doing, and I think maybe show off a little bit in front of him. He came down, saw what we were doing, and he was impressed with the things that I found to be interesting. We had grown sales, the staff was happy, things were flowing. And he said to me then, come into the office and let's sit down and take a look at the numbers. And we brought out the financial statements and he asked me to describe what was going on to them. I had no idea. I could not describe anything that was going on. And he said to me, how can you run a company if you can't even read the manual? That changed my life. I fixed that. I got my MBA, taught finance. It changed my life.
Since I started here, I've definitely grown a lot.
You got to live it. You got to be here to feel it, to see it.
Every day, I'm totally thrilled on what I'm going to learn that day.
The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink TV, its sponsors, or partners.